Hey everyone, Anthony here. Thank you for listening. We got a great one for you this week. We have the founder and CEO of Maple, Michael Perry. For those of you that don't know, Maple is a free all in one app. It helps parents get organized and stay organized. It's really cool. This is an awesome conversation because Michael was a busy working dad who decided to create Maple to help others in his position. And he drops a lot of knowledge about what it's like starting multiple companies, what it takes to be a founder, what he thinks the future of work looks like, and a lot more. If you're a working parent, you can check out Maple in the App Store for free as well. I do appreciate you listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please click the follow button, leave me a rating. That'd really mean the world to me. It's the best way to help grow the podcast. Anyway, on to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents Podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents. Still working on the title. My guest today, he is the founder and CEO of Maple, a mobile application to help parents stay more organized, and a father of two. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Perry. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So usually we just dive in with a quick background on your career. So if you'd share a little bit about your career, that'd be great.
Yeah, I guess I would say that my career really started, I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age. I started working in family businesses, and really became incredibly passionate about entrepreneurship and the small business ecosystem. When I was 20, I started building software companies, had a couple failed shots at goal there, and eventually in 2016, I sold the company that I had founded to Shopify. I was a senior executive at Shopify for 4.5 years, overseeing all of our marketing technology investments and partnerships, strategic partnerships within the vein of marketing. And then I ended up becoming a father while I was at Shopify. Became super motivated and passionate about parenthood, and it being our life's work, and decided to leave Shopify in 2020, end of 2020, to start Maple. So that would be my kind of wrap up. Technologist, serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, and we'll dive more into Maple in a moment, but tell us a little bit more about your role as father. You have two kids, right?
Yeah, I have two super awesome boys. I have a 4-year-old son, Leander, and a 2-year-old son, Solomon. Very proudly parents of both those boys, who my wife and I had by way of IVF, and we've been very deeply connected to the IVF community, through our own reproductive journey and people kind of going through it. But they are just the absolute, light of my life. I'm sure every
Sure.
parent feels the same way about their kids, but I feel like
Yeah,
my boys are super special and awesome, and it's the privilege of a lifetime to get to be their dad.
of course. Yeah. How do you feel like so you became a father before you founded Maple, right? Do you feel like
Yeah.
your experience as a dad has shaped the way that you approach starting a new company this time around?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, prior to having my kids, yeah, I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, I kind of grew up a bit as like in Silicon Valley, a fanboy of the concept of, build something that's going to dent the universe, and feel like I drove a really hard work culture and expectation. And I think when you start becoming a father, or when you have a family, you realize that two things can coexist. You can do really great work for society, but you don't have to be an asshole in the process of doing it. You can be a kind, softer human being, be an empathetic human being, and still get the best out of people. So certainly, I would say, becoming a father has changed how I've thought about building a company. We now are a completely remote business because we think that that's what's best for parents. As a leader, I think I'm far more empathetic at 37 than I was at 27. And then just like the core principles of and values of what Maple has been built off of. In terms of like raising children and caring for one another as our life's work, has been entirely inspired by my journey as becoming and actively being involved as a father. So
So
yeah,
you say you were,
I don't know. There's anything that's been more impactful in my life in terms of changing who I am.
yeah, sure. Do you feel like you were not the nicest boss before you had a kid? I feel like that's what I'm getting underneath the surface there.
I don't think I was an asshole. I think I lacked. I think I was not an understanding human being. My expectations were that work was the first and only priority. I did not give a shit about your social life. I didn't care about. I don't think that anyone would describe me necessarily as like. I don't think I lacked kindness. I think that. Oh, maybe I did. I don't know. I think that that's a question maybe my past staff would be able to have a better job of answering. Maybe they would see me as an asshole. I don't see myself that way. I see myself as somebody um, whose values were greatly misaligned with who I am today.
Yeah, and in some sense, that's what it takes to build a company. Sometimes, right? Like you do need that kind of singular focus, and you do need that dedication. And I understand. I've worked for a few founders now, and it's like the company that they're building is kind of like their baby in some ways. And so I feel like it
Yeah,
makes sense that they have this drive and
yeah.
dedication to it that other people might not as easily bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, Kit, the company I sold to Shopify, that was my baby. I don't know if I fully agree with that statement, anymore in terms of like they have to have that. I think what you have to be a great founder is a deep, deep belief in terms of what you wish the world could be. That's my general sentiment in today's world is that part of building a great company is not writing people or being an asshole or being difficult. I think it's actually being, um, depending on the type of business you're building, at least at Maple, we believe that the world could be significantly better, more collaborative, have more household equality. And so, what we build and the world that we want to shape also has to match our values internally and how we treat one another and how we operate as a team and a company. I think that having a tremendous amount of focus and discipline in terms of how you spend your time. I think that there's a lot of people. I don't go to like 1,000 happy hours a year anymore or 1,000 bullshit networking events. And I would do that when I was in my 20s, and I was viewing that as productive. I think discipline now, in terms of having laser focus as a founder, is less about behaving hard nosed at work and more about just like how you ruthlessly manage your time throughout the day to move the business closer to that vision.
You mentioned a few swings at the plate that weren't home runs. Other than this, what we just talked about, which is sort of this like more empathy and softening of your view on people that you work with. What do you think went wrong or you did wrong at those first couple of attempts that then you did right at this the most? What was the company that was bought by Shopify?
Kit,
Kit.
kitcrm.com.
Sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think you did wrong in your first couple of attempts that you did right at Kit?
Well, I think that some of it was just like any person that's early on in their craft, very few people know exactly what they should be doing or are doing when they are out the gate. Um, I was 21, the first company I built. That lasted 3 years. And I was 24, 25 when I tried it again. And I was 27 when I built Kit. I think that there was definitely a lack of, trying to build too much, too fast, too soon is, I think, something that plagues a lot of founders in software, trying to take on the world versus having this larger lens because they're trying to do so much so fast and they drive that hard nosed spiritual belief that they're putting a dent in the universe. I mean, when we build Maple, we're building Maple to be a 100-year-old company. We're building Maple to be a generational business. And so we're far more thoughtful about how we stack bricks up to build that empire. And we're not trying to build every single thing in a city in parallel. Definitely in my previous companies, and I think a lot of first time founders make this huge mistake of buckling to investor pressure or what competitors are offering, and they just don't really just build the business in a sound long-term way because they're short-term thinking. And that was probably, I'd say, a big shift between my earlier businesses to even Kit to working at Shopify to now Maple, is that we need to balance showing short-term results to know that we're going in the right direction. Toby, my former boss and CEO, referred to those things as tripwires. Is this something that's working or not working? But also keep our eye on the prize of where do we need to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? What does the world look like in 100 years if Maple's effective? And too many founders are not able to find that balance in thinking and execution.
It's known that most startups fail. So, I
Correct.
understand it's, pretty impressive that you've done it a couple of times now successfully. Do you think how much of that is the things that we're talking about and how much of it is just like the actual product or idea itself? Like if you could go back in time and redo your first business, do you think you would be able to make it successful knowing what you know now, or is it
Yes.
sometimes just the
Yes.
wrong product? You do.
So the first business I had was just so ahead of its time, and it was such a great idea in hindsight. I misexecuted like crazy. I think under the right
Was it an
leadership.
iPod?
No, it was the first business actually was a photo. This is like 2006, 2007 was the start of that business. And that business, you would upload a photo. And this was before the Facebook like. You'd upload a photo. It was a photo sharing service. It was a community of artists, and people would star the photos that they liked the most, and it would upvote them in the feed, so you could see the best work every single day by the community. Um, it was kind of like if I don't know how familiar with like the old versions of Dig. It was inspired by like if Dig and Flickr could basically come together as a product, what would that look like? Super cool product, super cool business, just totally poorly ran. Um, I would like to get that one back. I'd actually like to get them all back because I've learned so much along the way. Some of it's product timing. Honestly, like I've been around the block now, almost 20 years building software. Some of it's just like the products are, you get your timing wrong. They're just too, the rest of the world isn't ready for what you're seeing. And that's been
Yeah,
the case on a lot of my ideas. And then you look back and, here we are 15 years later and, you know, Instagram nailed it. They got that timing right. The very first
yeah.
version of Instagram looked a whole lot like the very first version of my first company. This company, I'm hoping that the timing is right. We could be getting it wrong. I don't think we are. I think it's like going to be pretty well timed. But and then some of it, to be honest with you, is just like I think most of companies ultimately end up failing. I'd say a percentage of certainly is product timing, market timing, but I think so many of them are people not having the discipline, and they just don't build the right things with the right like level of focus because everyone's just trying to do too much too soon. Everyone's looking for instant gratification. Building a company is a fucking awful thing. It's super hard. Every single person that's ever come to me to say, I'm thinking about being an entrepreneur, I just say like, why?
Yeah.
It takes a very sick human being um, to really love doing this job in life.
I mean, to that
Uh,
point, I was gonna ask you, right? You build up a successful company, you sell it to Shopify. I'm sure
yep.
you're doing pretty well for yourself at that point. Like, you probably
Yep.
don't need to start a new company from scratch, right? So what? So
Yep.
why? So tell us a little bit about why you did, and tell us a little bit about Maple.
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, sometimes in life, you stumble across a problem that just feels too big to ignore. And for some people, you know, people either fall in love with the solution or people fall in love with the problem. For me, I've been plagued or gifted. I don't know which bucket you want to put me in, but I deeply fall in love with problems. Um, And once I latch onto a problem, then it becomes a test of am I smart enough or am I capable of being the one that can solve it? When I was at Shopify, I became a father, and you hear it. You have children, right? You hear it. Everyone says it. Greatest job on earth, hardest job on earth. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
most truthful thing about parenting. And when I
Sure.
became a father and I finally got to understand more deeply or feel it more deeply, empathetically live it about exactly what that meant, um, it felt insane to me that I had been spending my life building technology to try to make entrepreneurship easier. And was I going to be the guy or the entrepreneur or the person that could shape a company that would build technology to make parenting easier? Maple stands for Make All Parents' Lives Easier. Um, and I think once I latched onto that, like I felt the problem, I was experiencing the problem, I fell in love with the problem. I haven't solved the problem yet. It wasn't really about the money for me. It was about, just really testing myself, challenging myself. It's almost maybe in some weird ways, it's like you look at athletes who just like never know when to hang it up. I hope that people don't look back on me and say, "Wow, why did he start Maple? He could have hung it up after Shopify. He won." It's like I just want to keep winning. And by winning, I don't mean like, yeah, everyone wants to make money, but like by winning, I mean by solving problems that like
Yeah.
positively impact hundreds, thousands, millions of people. And that's really why I got, the ball rolling again. I think this will probably be my last technology company because I am getting older and I want to. I feel very committed to this, and I'm hopefully doing this for a really, 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 really long time. But it's definitely, it's a sick lifestyle choice. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I always thought that why would somebody want to keep working when they didn't have to, or take on something bigger when they don't have to? But as I got older, I met people like yourself, and there's obviously plenty of well-known entrepreneurs that keep, that look at Elon Musk, right? Like, I don't think he needs to work anymore, but he chooses to. So I think that some people just have that interest in like winning. To your point, so I wouldn't say you're sick. I think it's a good thing, and as long as you're
I,
enjoying it, right?
I mean, I sickly love it. I
Yeah.
sickly love it. I love I love the roller coaster. I love the whack a mole of problem solving. I just, and to some extent, to your point, I don't think that I'm some Elon Musk. That would be absurd to even try to put me even in that arena. But I think that there is a group of people that it's just in their DNA to want to figure out what can they solve.
Yeah. Well, let's
Um,
talk a little bit more about the problem that Maple solves. We have a lot of parents that listen. So, what does Maple solve, and how could it help some parents that are listening?
Yeah, I mean, our core audience is working parents. I mean, almost 9 out of 10 children have dual working parents at home. And that doesn't even take in consideration the number of children in America that have single parents working full time. Um, and when I became a father, I think that the thing, and it's taken me a long time to put my finger on this, is that you don't, no one tells you that at a certain age you really become like an administrative assistant to your children. And parenting is so absurdly hard because you're trying to manage your own life, your personal life, you're trying to manage your job, you're trying to be everybody's everything. I feel like parents are everybody's everything, right? In my world, I'm trying to show up to be the best father I could possibly be to my kids, the best husband I could possibly be to my wife, the best son and brother I could be to my family, the best boss I could be to my employees, the best friend I could be to my friend. Like, you're trying to be everybody's everything, and that requires just so much juggling. And so what happens is that we now in the world 2023, parents are trying to be everybody's everything. They're trying to keep up with the bullshit pressures of Instagram, the social pressures of having your kid in 17 different sports and doing every single outdoor organic exercise activity possible. And so the thing that plagues most parents is that most of the workload falls on one parent. Most parents are feeling super overwhelmed and disorganized. And what Maple built is a very powerful yet simple system that allows for parents, either individually, co parenting, collectively, any configuration of household, to get organized in home through what we call folders. And inside each of those folders, so you can use something as simple as bills and finance, or your kids, or planning a trip, or preparing for the holidays, something that is taxing on the mind. And inside of those folders, you could be collaborative on a unlimited configuration of tools that we've created for tasks and to-dos, to a shopping list, to a calendar event system. Um, we just launched an expense sheet system for people that are trying to budget very expensive things like the holidays that are coming up, our trip that's coming up. And we're getting ready to launch another tool. And so Maple provides these households with this kind of collaborative system on all the workload and all the planning that goes into the home in an all-in-one space. So that's what Maple does.
Awesome. I played around with it. I think it's really great, and so I'll link to it in the show notes so people can check it out as well. So how much of it was like like what you found to work for you that you put into it? Like how much of it are you like? Where are the ideas coming from as far as, hey, this is going to help parents? Are there all the things that you found helpful? Are you tapping into other experts? Like where is it coming from?
I don't think there's any expert in parenting. I think that there's a lot of really smart people that give some advice on, like, specifically, I do think there's some expertise in like social, like psychological things that go into parenting. You may have children that have behavioral issues, and seeking counsel for that is phenomenal. But there is no expert on how to run your household. And I think what's been challenging is that, we have 120 million households in America. Every parent that we've ever talked to, which is in the thousands now over the course of 2.5 years, they all want to tell us a different way that they run their home. So yes, a lot of the roadmap is guided by, you know, my own pitfalls in my own marriage, in my own household, trying to show up better for my own wife, trying to be more collaborative on our kids' school stuff, calendar stuff, sports stuff, grocery ship, whatever, like everything. And then Maple is like basically a company of parents. Everyone's internally got kids and everyone's using the product. And, I really think that we are a mission oriented business that is very open to user feedback. And it's a community lift to try to get this right, because we do feel like we are building the super app, or the future of tooling for taking care of your kids and organizing your home. Like, full
Yeah.
stop. I don't think that there's a more powerful product on the market right now in terms of keeping your life organized. So, a lot of it is self-use. A lot of it is like someone emailing in, and we see a lot of people emailing in constantly about the same stuff. Next with, so I'm looking at our roadmap on my board here. About 3 weeks from now, we're going to be launching. I don't know if this podcast will be out by then or not, but we're going to be launching our very first widget for all of our iPhone users, so that your to-dos and your calendar can sit on your home screen if you want. And that came by way of like hundreds of people emailing in over the course of a year that they want to see a widget. It's like, well, if parents feel like they need that, then let's build it, right? So it's been a weird company because we have a very clear line of communication with our users, because people are so passionate about their children and their needs at home.
So at its core, that gets, because it is a little bit, I guess the way you use it is what you get out of it, right? But at its core, it's helping you to organize the schedule of the day, right? Is that kind of like what you'd say is boiled down?
Our calendaring system is the best. Period. Full stop. It's completely color coded back to your Maple folders. I think the way that we would look at it from a value perspective is that instead of having to use 10 different apps to keep your family on the rails, it's one. And more importantly, what we've seen is a very high uptick of household collaboration. So most in heterosexual marriages, mostly women are the ones planning the doctor's appointments, doing the grocery shopping, managing the home with very little support from their spouse. Maple is a great solution to solve for that as well, in terms of bringing everybody into the fold and creating complete transparency about the total load and planning that goes into taking care of your kids. So yeah, the tooling is best in class, best to-do list, best calendaring system, best shopping list, all of those things we put a lot of lift, time, and effort into. But at the end of the day, it's the best way for two people to come together, or a single person to manage themselves, to stay organized around your kids and household needs.
So how do you, or do you have times when maybe a couple comes to you, and there's one parent who's really more into it than the other, and like, is there any
Yeah,
advice? Do you have any advice for that? Because in my household, I'm really more of the planner, and I love the idea of this app, because I love planning stuff, and my wife is probably listening to this like laughing, because she just is so
yeah.
annoyed at
She's like,
all my planning ideas. She's like, leave me alone, please. I just
yeah,
try to every morning I try to discuss plans with her for the day, and it's not our favorite part of the day for sure. But yeah, so how
yeah.
do you suggest one person? It sounds like you need all family members to be into the app for it to be effective.
You don't actually. I mean, it's most effective when everyone is in the app, but we have a lot of parents who use it by themselves, because, exactly to your point, some people are just not type A personalities. They're not like planners. They're not sitting down. They like to keep it in their head, or like they have their old legacy systems of how they like to do things. We have a lot of parents who have told us that like they can't get their husband on, but they like use it every single day. And some of the systems that they've put in place is like, it still acts like the primary anchor to sit down and discuss things on a Sunday night with their partner, or plan for their trip with their partner. And you can share external. You can use calendar invites externally in Maple. You can share to-do lists externally in Maple. So there's a lot of factors where, even if the person that you're wanting to collaborate with is not directly in the app, you can still benefit from using the app to self-organize and share information with other people. So, I found that being organized is a skill. I think a lot of people desire to be organized, but not everyone has the skill set to be organized. Maple really helps bend that curve to make it easier for people, because the nature of how the product works in terms of storing things inside of folders, and automatically color coding your calendar, and color coding the various tools that you're using, and really kind of breaking your workload down into time, really helps people once they really kind of get up and get going. I don't think that it's a fair expectation to assume that every single person in the household is going to want to use the same tools, but I do think that every household benefits from using Maple, if that makes sense.
Sure. The other day, in like full sincerity, I said to my wife, I think we should come up with a plan for how to handle our child's sleep during daylight savings time. And she was
Yeah.
like, that's like a month and a half away, dude. Like, no, I'm not talking about this for, talk to me about this in November, please.
Yeah, that's a November problem. I mean,
Yeah.
I admire your proactiveness.
Yeah.
Definitely would probably be more somewhere along the lines of your wife of being like, maybe we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. But my
Yeah.
wife and I have really gotten into a very good rhythm of like, we have a kids folder. And inside of our kids folders, our kids' full school schedule, and it's pickup and drop off. And inside of that is also like our kids' swim practices and their activities. And like, I, I have a full, clear understanding of everything that's going on in my family's life. And there's some folders we use. We're very thankfully we have a nanny. So there's some folders our nanny's in with us, and we can assign things to our nanny, or she can assign things to us. She adds to our grocery list, right? She's like, "You guys are out of milk," and puts it directly on our grocery list for us. So it's just like it's an easier way of keeping everybody involved without it all falling on one person's shoulders about any one particular thing that goes into taking care of your kids or your home.
Is it meant for the kids to be on it at some point and when they're of age, or what's the idea?
Yeah, I think that right now everyone needs to have an email address to use the app. So just depends on when you introduce your kids to email. But I mean, we know that there's people. There's a guy who works on our team. He has teenage children. His kids are on the app, and he assigns chores to them directly inside the app. They work as a family directly inside the app. So it certainly satisfies those use cases. I would love to get to a place where Maple could even distribute like allowance payments directly inside the app, or have more external tooling depending on the folder that you're working on directly
Yeah.
inside the app. Our goal as a company, our vision as a company, is to really make it where Maple is the only app that you need from beginning to end, regardless of what you're planning and doing, and also use the technology to really give you guidance on how we can help you optimize your household and make it easier and easier and easier to take care of your family and stay organized and stay collaborative. So directionally, that's a bit where we're going, and super excited about what 2024 is going to bring Maple.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I mean, this is basically the app that was designed for me, so I'm excited to see what you guys do next
It is
too. And
it's the app designed for you and your listeners. I mean, anyone who's a working parent knows
yeah,
it's
that's right.
hard.
Yeah,
It's a hard life. It's a beautiful thing, but it's hard to be everyone's everything.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk to you about work, the future of work in this like
Yeah.
new era of this hybrid model. And I mean, you've obviously seen different iterations of it, having been in this
Yep.
space for a long time. So I'm curious to see
Yep.
how you're approaching it now that you're starting this company in this kind of post COVID era, and where you see things going from here.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I was a bit old school going back to like how was I at 27, where it was like being in your desk was a KPI. It's like, are you here at 8 o'clock in the morning? No, that's a problem. Are you here at 5 o'clock at night? No, that's a problem, right?
Yeah,
I think that the ship has kind of sailed. I think the future of life, the privileged future of life, is flexibility. You as a father, where do you live, Anthony? Are you in California? What coast are you on, at least?
I'm in the city, New York City.
New York City? Okay.
Yeah,
So you and I live very, very, very different lives, right? You're in New York City, you're in density. I'm in Santa Barbara, California. I'm in a tiny beach town. If we wanted to work together, neither one of us should have to sacrifice for what we believe is best for our children. You believe that your children should be growing up in a city and you want to be exposed to all the beautiful inner workings that a city brings. I believe that I want my kids to grow up surfing and riding their bike, even though there's trade offs to both of these things. But as
yeah,
fathers, we're making decisions on what's best for our kids. And I think historically, what's been terrible is that you want to go work at some great company and they're like, hey, we need you to uproot your life, move away from your family, move away from your tribe, and like come work in some other city because they're asking you to make a decision that this monetary incentive is what's best for your family. And I just don't fundamentally believe that. I think that the world is moving to being completely asynchronous. And as you may or may not know, and certainly many of your listeners do know, the people that are most affected in the workforce, who are having to make the sacrifices and remove themselves from the workforce, are women, right? It's like someone's staying at home with the kids, someone's taking the kids to school. Childcare is super expensive. When you can move to a more hybrid model or a work from home, primarily a work from home model, you create way more flexibility and optionality for parents who are trying to manage both their family and their career. And so, I'm a big, 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 big believer now that you can be highly productive in a remote or hybrid model, and that we have to get away from these 9 to 5 molds and find the right asynchronous way for people to be able to, without killing themselves, juggle life as a parent and life as an employee. And, I think Maple's been quite groundbreaking in terms of how we've tried to address this. And it's something that I have a lot of pride in, and I hope that we continue to push the envelope on.
That's great. I like the direction things are headed. I mean, I have a 4 month old, so my wife's still on maternity leave, and I've been working from home. Really, I'm taking my leave kind of when she goes back. So it's really made a huge difference for me to be here to be able to kind of help out.
Huge,
And before
huge.
COVID, I was going to an office every day as well, and I think the commute itself, right, is just like an extra like 40 minutes on both ends, and then you're obviously just
Yep.
not around for to randomly like help out for 45 minutes during the day. So it's made a huge difference, and I don't know how we would be doing it without it.
Well, I think it's a combination. Like, A, you're now able to be a more supportive husband, which is awesome. Good on you. But B, it's like you also now get to be a more involved father, right?
Yeah,
Like, it hasn't happened to you yet. It will. You will have a moment. No one gets to bat 1,000. But like, I have been very blessed and fortunate that I have been home because of COVID both times when my kids took their first steps.
yeah, that's great.
Nothing would feel fucking worse
Right.
on earth when your kid's like in that 11-month to 13-month range, somewhere in that window, they're going to take their first step, right? And you're going to be sitting in an office and having anxiety because you're like, I don't want to miss this. You
Yeah,
don't want to miss your kids taking their first step, right?
yeah, right.
And if you're working from home, your wife could scream like, hurry up, get over here. Or you could just be taking a lunch break and just witness it. And when you go back to an office, that those kind of things don't matter. So I think it's like, we talk a lot about being able to show up as a partner and care. But what we don't talk a lot about is like expecting people to miss out on some of the most joyous moments of their life for a commute. Like nothing would feel shittier than sitting on a subway train and
Yeah,
getting a text message video of like,
yeah,
do you have a boy or a girl?
that girl.
Your daughter taking her first steps, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I think that the world, and again, this is where I got so many things wrong early in life, is that I was so driven to see the outcome that I wanted to see, any costs necessary. And now it's like the only outcome I want to see is people able to do their life's work and for the world to become a bit more empathetic, right? And I think working from home is a real great indicator of human led empathy about not expecting people to miss the most important moments with their kids.
yeah. Totally love it. How we doing on time? Do you have a hard stop at the top of the hour?
No,
Okay.
I'm all yours.
All right. We're gonna move into the final segment called Michael's Advice Corner. So I'm gonna ask you
Oh
for
boy.
some advice on a few topics. I always love to see people's reactions when I say that because some people like are pumped, some people are like, "Oh God, don't listen to me." So, but yeah, I'm
I'm
just gonna
probably
ask you a few
somewhere.
questions.
I'm somewhere in between, probably, depending on the question.
All right, I'm gonna ask you for a few questions. Just give your advice on it. Well, first
Okay.
of all, what advice would you give for somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur?
My advice to someone who would want to be an entrepreneur is be incredibly clear and authentic about why you want to be an entrepreneur. That would be my advice. Most people get into entrepreneurship for the absolute wrong fucking reason. They say, I want to get super, super rich. That's cool. If you're successful, there's a chance you'll get super, super rich. But you can also do incredibly well financially going working at a company and being a huge value add employee and not have to carry the stress and burden and jeopardize your quality of life being an entrepreneur, right? The
Yeah,
success rate is very small. So, when I started Maple, I had a goal and I still have it. It's my goal of taking a company public. But my larger goal, the reason why I am doing it is, can I make a positive impact on the lives of parents at home? Right. And that to me, I think is the most important thing to think about before you start.
what advice do you have for somebody who's about to be a parent, but they still have a career they want to focus on?
There's always a tremendous amount of time for your career. There's very little time to watch your kids grow up.
Yeah, that's so true. What advice do you have for self care? We haven't talked about that yet, but You're both a busy founding CEO and a father. What advice do you have for self care?
My advice for self care. Oh God. I mean, you're talking to someone who's trying really hard right now to be better at it. My biggest, okay, let me put it this way. I've always regretted neglecting my mental health. I always regret it. It's so easy to fall out of good practice. It's so easy to prioritize your business. It's so easy to prioritize everyone else around you. It's so easy to say that today I can take a back seat. Um, I always regret neglecting myself. And there's long stretches and long times where I do. I'm a very bad participant of self hatred and bad self care. Um, I wish that there was one thing I wish that I could be exponentially better at. It'd be taking better care of myself. So my advice to young entrepreneurs are people who are in the thick of it, build good habits. You won't regret it.
What is the best advice you ever received?
Be a first class you, not a second class someone else.
Hmm. I like that one.
My grandmother told me that one when I was younger. You can't fake who you are. Don't try to be someone else. Just try your hardest to find your authentic self. Try your hardest to speak to your DNA. There's no point in being a second class someone else. Just go all the way in on being the best version of you.
Yeah. What advice would you give to your former self?
Man, that's a hard question because I think it really depends on the time frames. Um, actually, I know that. I think about this a lot. Actually, um, enjoy the present.
Good one.
That is the biggest fuck up of anyone's life is that we wish so badly, when you're building a company, I really wish that this company would, I pray that someone buys this company. And then, you're wishing away some really beautiful shit. I hear parents all the time say, I can't wait until my kid is X age. Oh no, you should want to wait because there's going to be a day where you're going to want them to go back. I was just to give an example for someone exactly in your shoes. I was just yesterday having lunch with somebody and they have a 2 month old. Okay, yeah, little younger than a girl, also a little younger than your baby. And they said to me, "I can't wait until she's 1 and we can go back to the beach." I said, "Don't wish that.
Yeah. It's a
Don't wish
whole
that
year.
because
It's
when
a
she's
whole year.
yeah, like don't wish this time away." I said, I remember when my kids used to lay on my chest and nap on my chest.
Yeah.
Now my 4-year-old is like, he's the man. It's like I think so many people wish away the present, and I was one of those people. And I think that just being super in love with right now is like such an amazing skill that people have.
Yeah. I'm already lamenting that she's getting bigger and older and not the same little baby she was. Yeah. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for a Maple user? Some of my listeners download the app and start using it. What advice would you have for them?
Hmm. My advice that I have for a maple. So let me take a step backwards. My advice that I have for any parent that's trying to work better together, whether that is using just Google Calendar, writing notes down on your refrigerator, um, just don't give up. Right. I think that in the hardest of times, we go back into old habits. So much ends up falling on one person's shoulders. Maple, if you use it constantly, if you check in every other day on it, if you keep it up to date, if you build the habits for more collaboration, more equality, becoming more organized, I think it's important for people to realize that being organized is a skill set. Being collaborative, having the right communication skills is a skill set. Right? These things aren't things that come natural to people, but they are things that when they are effective, make a very positive impact on your personal life and your relationships around you. I have never heard anybody say that having good communication skills or good collaboration or being organized is a net negative thing. But it requires work, like it requires an effort. And so I think my larger piece of feedback to your listeners is, yeah, I hope that they use Maple. I really am biased in terms of thinking it's the best, but I do think it's way, 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 way up there. I think that you have to build a habit around it. But I think that having a good relationship is period, full stop, is a lot of hard work. And you need to make the effort to have a good relationship. And Maple is just one vehicle for that.
Yeah. All right, last question. So by the time this comes out, I think my daughter will probably be 6 months old. So what advice do you have for me as a father of a 6 month old?
Well, if I had to give a second piece of advice outside of being present, um, I would say a lot of parents, this was advice that was given to me. So I'm kind of ripping it off. This was actually given to me by a venture friend of mine, Chris Howard, who used to run Fuel Capital and he just started Ritual. Um, he has three sons. I've admired deeply the type of father that he's been. And he came to me and said, whatever you do, take lots of videos. Everyone takes pictures, but take
Mm-hmm.
lots of videos. You're going to miss hearing those sounds. You're going to miss hearing their little voices. You're going to miss hearing all that stuff. And so I've taken a ridiculous amount of videos, random video. Like my kid's just like eating lunch. I'm just sitting there filming him. And now my son's 4. His voice has changed. His face has changed. He's becoming more of a boy he's definitely way more of a boy than he is a toddler. But I can hear his old little voice in those videos, his cute
Yeah.
little soft 1.5-year-old voice. And you don't get that from a photo. And so my biggest
Yeah.
piece of advice is like, be super, super, super selfish with documenting for you.
Yeah, that's so good because we have the shared folders obviously, and I actually was
Yeah.
just looking yesterday, and it was like 400 pictures in like 3 videos. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Like
you're
people will take more pictures.
take tons and tons and tons of videos because there's going to be some days where, again, in the absence of presence, you have documentation.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Michael, this has been a really great conversation. Where can people go
Yeah, thank
to
you so
learn?
much.
Yeah, where can people go to learn more about you? Where can people go to learn more about Maple?
So Maple is, growmaple.com. We're also at Grow Maple pretty much everywhere. We have a big footprint that we're building on LinkedIn right now for working parents. So definitely track us down on LinkedIn. And then I'm just at Michael Perry pretty much everywhere on Instagram and Twitter and, all that kind of stuff. And I oftentimes talk a lot about being a dad and talk a lot about Maple and just try to uh, be as authentic as possible for anyone that's interested in keeping up with what's going on.
All right, Michael Perry, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.